Defense News. It's proudly sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. If you're a member of our nation's armed forces, the Department of Defense, or if your family is, we'd be proud to serve you too.
On this episode of Defense News Weekly, we get a snapshot of the situation in Afghanistan for U.S. interpreters and allies. Also, we hear from an Army veteran who lost a leg in Iraq and recently competed at the 2022 Warrior Games. He tells us who is inspiring him. We get an inside look at how NATO is fortifying its eastern flank, and we see just how big a new Abrams tank contract is and where they're headed. Then later, we see how a robot might be accompanying you on perimeter patrol. It's the latest in news and analysis from the Pentagon's The Platoon, here on Defense News Weekly. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. I'm Andrea Scott. The United States military exited Afghanistan 1 year ago. The rush process meant that many interpreters and other U.S. allies remained stuck with the Taliban. What is the situation like for them 1 year later? We sat down with Mariah Smith of No One Left Behind to find out more.
No One Left Behind has been the main organization for the past several years that assists Afghan and Iraqi translators that worked with the U.S. government, and we assist them in several ways. We advocate to streamline the special immigrant visa program to facilitate their immigration to the U.S. We assist them with resettlement once they're here in the U.S. with access to housing, access to meaningful employment, and for the past year, we have been involved in helping those folks evacuate from Afghanistan. So what things were like a year ago, we'll say late July, early August of 2021. No One Left Behind had mainly been focused on resettlement assistance, but we noticed that with the Taliban starting to take control of regions within Afghanistan and the announced U.S. withdrawal, there was a great increase in the number of special immigrant visa recipients and those that were in the pipeline waiting for their application to be approved that were reaching out to us with concerns about getting out of Afghanistan safely. So prior to the Taliban taking over the full country and taking over Kabul, in late July, we started a program with a partner called Change Reaction to fly people out on commercial tickets from Kabul. We thought we would have a couple months or several months to fly as many people out as possible, but rather Kabul fell within a matter of days. We had just started a program to fly people out on commercial flights out of Kabul. We had booked dozens of families that reached out for help, and we thought we would have months to execute this program. But instead, we only got 8 families out before Kabul fell to the Taliban. And during that time, I'm sure as every other veterans organizations, veterans themselves that have been involved in Afghanistan, we were receiving frantic messages in the amount of hundreds a day, sometimes thousands a day, of our Afghan allies that were wanting to leave Afghanistan. During this time, as we all collectively worked to rescue and assist as many of our Afghan allies as possible, there was a tremendous groundswell of effort from veterans organizations, new organizations that stood up, and individual volunteers that wanted to help the people of Afghanistan, the people that they had worked with. So it was a unified, coordinated effort of all these individuals, all these organizations working in conjunction with the U.S. government, with other established nonprofits and resettlement agencies to attempt to help as many people as possible. We started that program to buy commercial tickets for families, special immigrant visa families, to allow them to leave Afghanistan. The past year has been incredibly intense for the organization and everyone involved in assisting our Afghan allies. Our organization, No One Left Behind, has grown probably 20-fold. with the number of full-time employees, with the number of ambassadors, which is what we call our community organizers that are Afghan Americans and Iraqi Americans, as well as the amount of assistance that we are giving out and the number of people, special immigrant visa recipients, that we're tracking that either need evacuation from Afghanistan or assistance as they're newly arrived here to the U.S. Before last summer, I would probably spend just several hours a week helping to run the organization. All the board of directors are pro bono. But now this is something that I spend several hours a day on. The messages, the requests for assistance continue to come night and day, hundreds of people reaching out. We have a database of 73,000 people that are still waiting for evacuation from Afghanistan, and they are in all stages of the special immigrant visa process. Over 86% of our Afghan allies, our special immigrant visa applicants, are unable to work, are not allowed to work, do not have a steady stream of income in Afghanistan, and there is an overwhelming feeling of danger and uncertainty because of operating under the Taliban regime now. We always encourage people to go to our website at nooneleft.org. There are a number of ways listed there for how you can get involved for either donations, or if you work for an organization that would like to provide employment to Afghan SIVs, we can work with you on that as well. Or you can advocate to your member of Congress for improvements in the program and continuing to keep faith with our Afghan allies.
And now for some news from around the military. A NATO multinational battle group completed an exercise that will help fortify its eastern flank amid continued fighting in Ukraine. NATO announced Exercise Platinum Lion 22 took place last week in Bulgaria. The battle group consists of the 42nd Mechanized Battalion, as well as a mechanized infantry company from the U.S. Army's 3rd Armored Brigade Combat Team. The British Army also was involved with its Royal Irish Regiment, learning how to both maneuver and communicate with the Allies. The North Atlantic Council is NATO's principal political decision-making body, and it created the battle group earlier in 2022 to fortify its eastern part of the alliance. Bulgaria was the first to take command of it. NATO says the U.S. Army's 4th Security Force Assistance Brigade spent time mentoring Bulgaria's 42nd Mechanized Battalion. Italy is expected to take command of the battle group in the fall, with more countries joining. The U.S. Coast Guard rescued a Belgian boater about 3.5 miles off the coast of Puerto Rico last week. The rescue operation involved only that boater, who was on board a 32-foot sailboat. It was sailing from St. Martin to the Dominican Republic. A pair of U.S. Air Force B-52 strategic bombers flew low over several Southeast European countries on Monday in show of support to NATO allies. In addition to the walled Croatian tourist resort of Dubrovnik, the aircraft flew over the government headquarters in North Macedonia, Albania, and up the Adriatic coast of Montenegro. U.S. Ambassador of Albania Yuri Kim and the Albanian Army Chief of Staff joined the crowd that cheered as the American planes flew over. And that's it from around the military. When we return, we hear from an athlete who competed in the Warrior Games. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. I'm Andrea Scott. An Army infantryman lost a leg in Iraq, but he isn't letting that stop him. The veteran recently competed in the 2022 Warrior Games in Orlando, Florida. We sat down with him during the competition to ask him who and what motivates him.
I'm 4th generation military. Not only was it my turn, but growing up little, I always thought one of the greatest jobs you could have is serving your country. I joined the Army in November '97 and went to basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia. From there, my first duty station was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. From there, I went to Korea, came right back to Fort Campbell, deployed to Iraq, and was injured 9 months into my first deployment. I was in the town of Tel Afar, Iraq, which is in northern Iraq, in October 2003. We were doing our second patrol, and it was about 10 o'clock at night, and we were involved in a vehicle ambush. I was in the lead vehicle. The first rocket propelled grenade hit the back of my vehicle. We got out return fire. A second rocket came in and exploded right in front of me and essentially amputated my leg right on the spot. When I very first was injured, I got the wind knocked out of me, so I just thought I got shot in my body armor. I've heard from other soldiers that have been deployed and been in gunfights that if you get hit in the plate, it's probably going to break a rib or two, but just kind of get up and walk it off. So essentially that's what I tried to do, but I couldn't stand up. So I kind of laid there for a second. I was like, okay, while we're laying here, let's, check out my hands. Hands are good, no blood, all right. So I reached down and grabbed my left leg, and it's kind of bloody, and I was thinking, oh, that's not good. So I reached down and grabbed my right leg, and there was really nothing there to grab. And I kind of fell a little bit further down, and it was a hot mess, I could say. So I crawled back over to the vehicle where my guys picked me up, loaded me up. We finished the fight. 2 vehicles drove me out, and 2 vehicles stayed to clean up. And from there, I got to the aid station that we had in town, and the PA there got me squared away enough to fly to the field hospital in Mosul. From there, they did surgeries and whatnot, got me stable to fly to launch stool, and I ended up at Walter Reed about 10 days later. By the looks on everybody's faces, I was in real bad shape when they were first working on me. I didn't know until I woke up out of a coma at Walter Reed, and I looked down and my leg was gone. And being around other wounded veterans that were missing arms and legs, it kind of really, it was kind of normal to see because you're surrounded and immersed by it. It wasn't until the very first time I stood up on a prosthesis, looking in the mirror, that it kind of, reality hit me in the face. So like, okay, well, this is what life is now. Yeah, I grew up playing sports all the way through high school, and being in the military, you're, especially on the infantry side, we're very active. If we're not out training, we're playing sports or kind of screwing around. So when I first lost my leg, I was like, well, now what am I going to do? Like, I can't run, I can't ruck, I can't do things that an infantryman needs to do. And all I wanted to do was go back and be with my guys. Unfortunately, that wasn't in the cards, but through the occupational program there at Walter Reed and the physical therapy program at Walter Reed, they would bring in people that were adaptive athletes. The very first one that I remember is John Register, USA Track and Field, USA Swimming, 2-time Paralympian, 2-time Paralympic medalist. And he started talking about Paralympics, and I was thinking, wow, I remember watching the Olympics growing up, but now, with the opportunity to possibly be one, and it just worked out that I got an invite to try out for the Army shooting team. So thankfully the stars aligned and it worked out. I'm more busy now being a retiree than I was on active duty. So I'm very fortunate I get to coach high school athletes in strength and conditioning and football. And also, so I coach athletes year round. And then I train myself and I train family members. So I'm always busy doing something. And I try to stay active as I can. Sometimes it's too much. So when I can go to the gym and concentrate on my sports, or go practice archery or go practice throwing, to be successful, I have to focus on those events. And so I can shut the world out, even though I could be surrounded by people, but I could shut the world out for that hour and a half, 2 hours. And it's almost like meditating. From here, my goals for this Warrior Games is to help the younger athletes get to their potential and help them stay focused on what they're trying to do. But at the same time, encouraging them to take a step back and take in where we're at. For some of them, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And being around all the other services, the other countries that are here, and to represent the Army, it's a big deal. And a lot of athletes get so focused on what they're doing, they don't enjoy themselves. And I'm trying to encourage them to take a step back, take it in, go watch a sport, and just go talk to other athletes that may be going through the same injuries or the same healing process as you, because they might have a technique or a coping mechanism that you're not aware of. So it could make them, heal faster, heal better. So I'm trying to encourage the younger athletes to do that. And then for me personally, I would really like to compete in the Invictus Games again. So the more successful that I am at that, I'll get another shot at Invictus. What motivates me is I had some friends that didn't make it back from Iraq, and I want to make them proud. Of course, I want to make my family proud, but I want to set a good example for the athletes I train at home, and for my football athletes, I want them to see like, hey, you know, if he can do it, I can do it. And if I can inspire them to be better and push themselves past their comfort zone, then I'm doing it right. Looking back, I'm very thankful that I had the support of faith, family, and friends to get me through the low points. Yeah, I'm bummed out I lost my leg, but it could have been a lot worse. There's guys that I met that had a lot worse than me, and medically speaking, I shouldn't be sitting here right now. I should have passed away, but thankfully the PA that worked on me and the surgeons that worked on me in Mosul and the doctors and nurses I had at Walter Reed and Landstuhl were the absolute best in the world. Without them, I wouldn't be sitting here. And so I'm very thankful that I'm still here to enjoy the little things in life.
And now for Defense Dollars. BAE Systems' U.S. subsidiary has won a nearly $108 million contract from the U.S. Navy to repair the guided missile destroyer Ross. General Dynamics Land Systems has gotten a more than $1 billion contract to make 250 Abrams tanks for Poland. The Army says they'll be the first enhanced Abrams and are expected to reach Poland in early 2025. As officials study Russia's war against Ukraine, Poland is rushing to modernize its armored capabilities. Poland, as you know, borders Ukraine to the west. Earlier in 2022, as the war began, the U.S. State Department cleared Poland to buy American military equipment worth up to $6 billion. And that's it for your Defense Dollars. When we return, our personal finance expert gives us tips on how to protect yourself from identity theft. Welcome back. On this edition of Money Minute, Navy Federal Credit Union personal finance expert Jeanette Mack talks scams and ID theft through social media and how to protect yourself.
Millions of us use social media every day, and some spend hours online. And where there's millions of folks gathering online, there are just as many fraudsters and bots hard at work trying to separate those users from their money, identity, or both. Social platforms and websites are packed with malicious links and scams to encourage individuals to share personal information online. The most recent scam out there is called card cracking, also known as card popping. Fraudsters posing as bank officials use social media sites to run ads promising legitimate ways to make money. And a study done by the Better Business Bureau stated that sweepstakes, lottery, and prize scams are the most serious and the most common online. Victims are told they won, but they need to pay a fee, usually by wire transfer, to receive their winnings. If you come across this scam, it's best not to click on any links and just move on. As always, the best guard against scams is to never ever give away personal info, PINs, or account numbers unless you've made the call to a bank or credit union yourself. Always be cautious about unsolicited opportunities. And remember, if you didn't contact them first, it's most likely a scammer on the other end.
Thanks, Jeanette. We'll see you next time. To get more coverage of military and defense issues, be sure to check out our headlines online at Army, Navy, Air Force, and MarineCorpsTimes.com and DefenseNews.com. And for fresh headlines in your inbox every weekday, subscribe to our Early Bird Brief. Or if you prefer to get your news on social media, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And when we come back, robots pulling perimeter security with you? We explore that possibility in this week's MilTech. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. Your next battle buddy may come in robot form. Todd South has more in this week's MilTech.
When it comes to providing security around a perimeter, be it a base or even something like a school, gone are the days of a lone watchstander dutifully filling his or her rounds with a walk of the fence line and maybe with a don't mess with me type German Shepherd in tow. Well, not exactly. You're still probably going to have to do gate guard duty, still going to be manning a watch desk in the barracks, and likely still running perimeter checks. Never can be too sure. But if you're that guard walking that perimeter, wouldn't it be nice if you had some eyes on, Maybe a little information before you get to location so you know what you're going to face? A company called Zero Eyes, which launched in 2018 to combat school shooters with artificial intelligence and military veteran-run operation centers, might have a solution. The company is now working with the Air Force on a contract to put a camera software combination on drones and give those drones ways to deter, deflect, and disorient any would-be base intruder. We spoke with JT Wilkins, a Marine Corps veteran and Senior Vice President for Government Solutions at Zero Eyes, about his company's efforts.
You have a location with 150 to 200 cameras. You take that into a K-12 education environment, inside of a commercial environment, a government building, you name it. 9 times out of 10, all of those security feeds are not being monitored by anyone, or if they are, it's impossible to monitor more than one camera at a time. So the idea behind Zero Eyes is being able to integrate that artificial intelligence algorithm into those existing cameras to be able to remove that human from having to stare at a screen 24/7, 365 looking for a threat. Because ultimately, if you sneeze, look at your cell phone, eat lunch, use the restroom, you're going to miss something on there. And that's just the way that it is. So Zero Eyes AI does not get tired. We're able to monitor that persistently 24/7 and then detect, track, and communicate those threats throughout the entire incident, providing real-time situational awareness back to first responders.
But you got a new contract coming up. So I guess from what I've read, my understanding is that the Air Force is looking to you guys to maybe develop something that also has a drone-enabled capability and would work for active shooter scenarios in multiple situations. Can you tell us a little about, I know it's early, you just kind of got that awarded, but where's that at? What's the timeline? Kind of what are you guys exploring there?
So backing up to August of last year, we were awarded a commercial solutions opening contract with Tyndall Air Force Base to deploy our weapons detection algorithm on the installation on the existing security camera infrastructure there at the base, underneath of the Base of the Future program. We're one of 400 companies or so that went through the down select process, and then one of a few that ended up receiving a contract award as a part of that. In November timeframe of last year, we responded to the 21.1 AFWERX SBIR solicitation for a phase 2 conversion. That allowed us to be able to work with Ellsworth Air Force Base to sort of develop out a little bit more of our capability. And so ultimately, by leveraging the existing security camera infrastructure that's on a base to trigger a robotic response, what we see that as is being able to reduce the response time even further by having an automated process that enables us to interdict, deter, and disorient a potential threat to an installation. Ultimately, we'd rather put a robot in front of a would-be threat on an installation than a person. And so what this allows us to do is potentially disorient or deter that threat before the security forces or military police or master at arms team get to that location first. And so that's what we're looking at doing as a part of this process with the Air Force.
So, some people, when they deal with AI and cameras, the first thing that comes to their mind is privacy concerns, like facial recognition, whether it's in schools with kids or whether it's just people out doing their daily lives. Is that what this is, or is it something different?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've taken great strides to look at the privacy concerns that our software and our AI would bring up. And as a object detection capability, where we're looking at a object in hand, a firearm that has to be brandished, that has to be visible, that's the only time that you're ever going to hear from Zero Eyes. We have no ability to look into those live camera streams from our clients. We can't get those. The only thing that we'll receive is a detection of a firearm. We'll provide what's called a keyframe image, a timestamp, which is the time elapsed since that weapon was last seen, and a geolocation based on where the camera is located at. We're focused only on the gun. So from an ethics standpoint, from a data privacy standpoint, and just overall PII concerns, it's either you have the weapon or you don't. And so for us, we take that very seriously. We work within our clients' data privacy requirements. We don't maintain any data on our side. So from that standpoint, we've been able to go through and monitor in a lot of different locations and not infringe upon anyone's data privacy or any privacy rights.
So cameras are everywhere, especially around schools and military bases. If this software is effective and can be put on drones, then former Marines, Navy SEALs, and other veterans will be spitting in their dip cups many a late night, waiting, watching, and ready to spot a weapon before it fires. We'll keep our own eye out for new developments on this and other interesting tech. This has been Todd South with Military Times.
Thanks, Todd. And that's all we have time for this week. Please visit us on militarytimes.com and defensenews.com for more coverage. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.